Yeah, we're sort of a pariah amongst civilizations. Like there may be others that do what we do, but there's not very many. And we're sort of a very advanced stage in terms of technology. Like we travel to Mars, or we send robots to Mars. We're soon going to be landing people there and on the moon again. Eventually, he said we'll learn how to travel between the stars. So we're fairly advanced, and so that's the unusual thing about us, is that advanced technology, but our spiritual and emotional intelligence hasn't kept pace. So we're still, in some respects, we're still way back in the dark ages in terms of emotional and spiritual intelligence, but we have very advanced technology. So it's kind of a disconnect, and hopefully we can catch up with our spiritual and emotional intelligence to sort of match our technological achievements, and then that's where we should be.
Yeah. Welcome to the Inner Sanctum online group sessions with Karen Swain. This recording is some highlights from our 2 to 3 hour online sessions where I teach deliberate creation each week, and once, and sometimes twice a month, we invite a guest teacher to share their wisdom and their work. And we can quiz them, and we have a lovely time. Enjoy the highlights, and if you'd like to join us, please go to karenswain.com/inner sanctum and sign up. Again. Hello and welcome to the Inner Sanctum with our very special guest, Garnet Schulhauser, all the way in Canada. Welcome, Garnet. Welcome to the group.
Thanks, Karen. Thanks for having me again. I look forward to what unfolds after here. I'm eager.
I'm eager too. So Garnet's been on the show 3 times. He's been with us in the Inner Sanctum 3 times before. So this will be your 7th time with me online, me and the tribe online. And we were just chatting before I turned on the recording about, what's been going on with Garnet, and we'll go over that. But let me just read a little bit of your bio. There's at least one person online with me now that doesn't know too much about Garnet. Once a conservative Catholic corporate lawyer, Garnet Schulhauser has had some extraordinary out-of-body experiences throughout the cosmos after he was stopped in the street by a homeless man back in 2007, wasn't it? 2007?
Yes.
This homeless man turned out to be his spiritual guide, Albert, who calls himself Albert, who manifested in a physical appearance to awaken Garnet to his mission here on Earth to enlighten and awaken humanity. Albert showed Garnet many untold truths and mysteries about our world, the universe, and beyond. He asked Garnet to write it all down to help humanity evolve and awaken to a new era of civilization. Listen to Garnet's amazing astral body adventures with Albert, and how, this is something that I wrote on underneath one of your interviews. Albert, how they gained incredible insights from other realms of existences and from many spirit beings, and about how to help planet Earth and humanity thrive, evolve, and survive these turbulent times. So for the benefit of Laddie, do you want to go briefly, or, what happened in the beginning? Just how Albert introduced himself to you?
Sure. It was, as you said, in 2007, I was still practicing law in Calgary. And I was walking down the street one sunny afternoon in May, and all of a sudden the homeless man just jumped right in front of me and just stopped me in my tracks. And he looked like a typical homeless man with like long stringy hair and scraggly beard and dirty slept-in clothes. But I didn't go around him because he had these amazing, dazzling, sparkling blue eyes. And his blue eyes seemed to penetrate right into me, right down to the depths of my soul. And I sensed that he knew everything about me, everything I've ever said or done in my life, in this journey, which was strange because we'd never met before. But I didn't feel violated, because at the same time, he was sending me this wave of pure, unconditional love, is the best way I can describe it. It was infusing my whole body with an amazing sense of peace, security, well-being. It was the most amazing feeling I've ever felt. And so I was like a deer caught in the headlights. I just stood there until he broke the spell by saying to me, "Why are you here?" And then he promptly disappeared into a nearby store. Well, when I finally collected my wits, which I don't know, it may have taken several hours, I don't know, I went into the store to find him. But he was nowhere to be seen. And I walked back out on the street and walked up and down for several blocks, hoping to find him, but he had disappeared into thin air. So that night, as I went back home, I resolved that I would go back to that same place the next day to see if I can find him. So I did, same street, same time of day, hoping to find him. I walked around up and down the streets for about 15, 20 minutes, about to lose hope when I saw him sitting all alone on a bench. So I went up to him and I said, "Who are you and why did you stop me the other day?" And he said, "Well, I'm a soul just like you. I'm here to help you on your journey and answer your questions." So anyway, that was the beginning. So I sat down on the bench and had a conversation with him. And that was the beginning of a dialogue that went off and on with him for several months. He told me early on that his name was Albert. He was one of my spirit guides. And he had come to answer my questions. And then he said, "But I'm not just here to satisfy your curiosity. I want you to write a book about what I revealed to you so that everyone can have access to my revelations." So, which sort of took me aback because I never even dreamed of writing a book. In any event, so the first 3 times I met him, he manifested himself to me in physical form. But he told me after that I was the only one that could see him. And I could see him, I could touch him, he felt solid. And he said if somebody had been walking by the bench that day when I was talking to Albert, they would have seen me sitting all alone talking to myself because they couldn't see Albert. In any event, and after the first 3 times, and he just communicated, he was just the voice in my head, he communicated with me by telepathy. And so when we finished sort of all the material for the first time, I was still reluctant to write my book. But with some gentle persuasion and the occasional hit over the head with a 2x4, he managed to convince me to write the manuscript and find a publisher, which I did. And then so that was my first book, Dancing on a Stamp. And then after he disappeared from my life for a little while, and then he came back again in a much different format. I was sleeping in my bed. I woke up, I must have heard a sound, I don't know what, and I saw this ghost-like ethereal figure standing in the doorway of my bedroom. And when it got closer, I could see it was my old friend Albert, but he was now in astral form. And I said, "Well, Albert, what brings you here? What's happening?" And he said, "Well, I've decided to come and take you on some astral trips, some out-of-body adventures to the spirit side, to other places in the universe, other places on Earth, because I want you to write about what you see and hear in your next books." Because he said, "I think a picture is worth 1,000 words." So, okay, I just, fine. So he literally reached out and grabbed my astral arm, pulled my astral body out of my physical body, and I turned around and looked, and my physical body was still sound asleep in bed. And so then I said, "Okay, lead the way, Albert." And we rose up through the ceiling. When you're in astral form, you just pass through solid walls like they're not even there. And we went up high above our planet. He let me stop, and we turned around. I turned around and looked at our beautiful planet. And from that perspective, just an amazing sight. It's a sight that everyone hopefully someday will see, because our planet is really very beautiful from that perspective. It's like a pendant, it's shining in the inky blackness of space. And anyway, so then the next step was to go, he took me into the spirit side, and from there we went to a bunch of different adventures. And so that was my second book, Dancing Forever with Spirit. He came back again for more adventures in my third book, Dance of Heavenly Bliss. And then again in my fourth book for Dance of Eternal Rapture. And then again for my fifth book, which isn't released yet, Dancing with Angels in Heaven. And so that's how I met Albert, and that's how the adventure began, and that's how my books came about.
And we're still dancing, Garnet. We're still dancing.
That's good. Keep on dancing. Never forget, Karen.
Keep on dancing. You know, I have quizzed you over the years. I've quizzed you so many times. I can't remember everything I've asked you. But I don't know if I've really asked you much about Albert. So I have asked you, after all these years, does he still appear as the homeless person? And you said, "Oh yeah, every time." Does he still appear as the homeless person?
Yeah, he does, and that's just and he doesn't need to. I mean, he just chooses to do that. He did that initially because I was familiar with his homeless man figure, and so he just sort of out of habit, he just shows up as a homeless man. As I've mentioned to you, maybe in the shows before, on the spirit side, our true nature is we're just like beings of energy. And so some people in the natural state are like a globe of energy, pulsating energy. But souls on the spirit side can appear, and often will appear in another form, like human form. And they'll often pick the form of a life that they had in one of their lives on Earth that they particularly enjoyed. So it may have been, including the clothing and the costumes and everything else. And so they'll often appear in that frame to show to other people. But they can change that whenever they want. And if they want to get tired of that human form, they can just go back into being a ball of energy. But obviously for he probably thought that if he just showed up as a ball of energy, wasn't sure that it was him, so he shows up as homeless man.
Mm-hmm. And I love that he's the homeless man, because it speaks to the oneness of all of us, and it speaks to our prejudice as humans and how we see people as better or worse. And yet here's this homeless looking man who has unbelievable, exalted, higher wisdom and ability. And, it just sort of speaks to how we can not judge. It sort of speaks to our judgments as humans, I think.
Yeah, but when I asked him why he showed up as a homeless man, and he said, well, because before he met me, he said I was, and he was quite right. He said I was an arrogant, condescending, stuffed shirt lawyer who would never pay any attention to the homeless people. I mean, and he was right. I mean, before, when I'd see homeless people in the street, I'd think to myself, why don't you get a job like the rest of us, you bum, and quit living on the street? That was my attitude. So he thought, I'm going to test this guy to see if he could come off his high horse and come down to my level and speak to me. Fortunately, I passed the test. The rest is history, as they say.
You passed the test. But you two have known each other for eons of time. And have you ever sat down and really quizzed Albert about who he is, what he's done? Has he had a human life? Has he had lives on other planets? Or is he only, is he an archangel? Like, is he just always in sort of energy form? Have you ever really quizzed him about who he is?
Absolutely. And he's told me some things, but he won't tell me everything. Mm-hmm. He just does, he doesn't truly reveal, like, are you an archangel? He won't say anything. He has had a number of lives on Earth. In fact, he and I have had a couple of lives together before on Earth. And so he has been there. He's, I don't know if he's incarnated in other planets, but he has incarnated into animals on Earth before the human lives. And in my new book, he relates a funny story about his life as a dog. I won't go into any more details, but it was really quite funny. And so he doesn't really tell me everything. And I've asked him many times, and he said, you don't need to know that, and you'll figure it out when you get back over here. Meaning back over there permanently, as opposed to a temporary astral trip. So he's pretty circumspect about what he tells me, and I'm just used to that.
With the infinite amount of knowledge, stories, experiences available to us as spirit, as souls, and he's sharing things that, as I've said to you many times, Garnet, that have blown my mind. It's interesting that he's still editing, he's like, you don't need to know that. And I remember you once spoke about going up to the Akashic records. We call them the Akashic records. I don't think they call them that in spirit. The hall of knowledge, the library of history, or whatever we want to call it.
Yeah.
And he allowed you to have a look at a couple of your past lives, go through the books, the knowledge, a little bit, but you weren't allowed to look at all of it. So again, edited, like humans aren't allowed to know everything. And yet in this time on Earth, people like you, Garnet, and all the other people I'm speaking to are bringing exalted wisdom and expansive awareness to us. And yet we're still being edited. We can't know all of it yet.
Well, part of the reason is because he doesn't think that we're ready for all the knowledge. It might be too overwhelming. Mm-hmm. And in fact, he often tells me when I ask him a question, he'll say, I'll give you a brief answer, but I'm not going to give you the full answer because, he says to me, you're dealing with the limitations of your puny human mind. And I don't want to give you too much information. You'll be overwhelmed and you won't be able to cope with it. So he sort of spoon feeds me bits of information here and there, which is fine. And then he said, well, when you get back to the spirit side, it'll all come back to you. So not that I'm in a rush to get back there, but it is a wonderful place. And so I'm certainly not afraid or concerned about death because I know where I'm going.
Yes. So, in the first book, you spoke about, you had a lot of questions about life on planet Earth. You spoke a lot about religion, how does this religion fit in? And you sort of asked Albert a few questions that he answered. And then in the second or third, fourth books, or even the fifth books, it's all been about your astral adventures. So do you want to speak about where where you've been, just briefly, to give Vladdy an oversight and people that haven't met you before? I'm assuming that everybody knows you as well as I do, but I'm sure there are people watching this that don't. To give Vladdy an oversight of, what the books are about.
Sure. Well, on my very first trip to the spirit side, I went to this lovely white city called Gaia, which is just one of the cities in the spirit side. And there it was amazing. Like I had a meeting with the Council of Wise Ones, which is the committee of very advanced souls whose job it is to oversee all the incarnations on Earth. So their job is to, when a soul there says, "Yeah, I'd like to incarnate on planet Earth," they prepare a life plan, and the council or one of the members will review the life plan to make sure that it's appropriate, it's not too ambitious or not too easy, because the whole goal of every soul is to try to learn and experience things to help their evolution as a soul. And so the Council of Wise Ones is always there to give us a hand. He's taken me to a number of places on Earth to show me some of the abuses that happen on our planet, abuses to other animals, to other people, which is just horrific. We live in relatively sheltered lives. We don't get to see this, but he showed me, the killing field in Africa where a bunch of elephants were slain and poachers killing, rhinoceros and a shark finning boat where the people are just hauling in one shark after another, cutting off their fins and throwing the shark overboard. So he really wanted me to open my eyes to what's happening on Earth. But other places in the universe, I had a trip to a water planet called Proteus, where it's like Earth, except we're just covered in oceans. There's no land masses. Went underneath, had a conversation with a humpback whale and a dolphin. And they said that the undersea world on their planet looked very familiar to the under ocean scene on planet Earth. They said because most of the sea life on planet Earth was seeded by ETs from Proteus. And so they took life from Proteus and plunked it down on our dear old planet. And they stayed in contact with the whales and dolphins on Earth, by telepathy, even though that their planet was many light years away, but telepathy is virtually instantaneous. So there's no time lag. We're not limited in telepathy by the speed of light, as Einstein had told us. So it was, and their message was that the whales and dolphins on Earth are tired of being abused by humans. And it's like time we stopped hunting and trapping them and catching them up in our fishing nets and everything else, or putting them in water parks so that humans can gawk at them and clap at their silly tricks, So they were, that was their message to me. I also had a couple of ET experiences, one to a planet called Xeron, where there was a race of really super intelligent creatures, looked a bit like spiders. They lived underground in their city. They were very advanced. Their job was to monitor all the planets in our galaxy to find the ones that were capable of harboring life. And when they found one, they would notify the Galactic Council, and they would send out somebody to check it out. And if it was, in fact, able to harbor life, then they would arrange for seeding of life from other planets to that planet. So, and that's how life began on Earth, was these guys figured out a long time ago that planet Earth was capable of harboring life. So the ETs seeded life on planet Earth, starting with simple structures, microcosms, and then they gradually moved on up until eventually they seeded humans on planet Earth. So it's very fascinating. The ETs, I got to go into an ET spacecraft orbiting our planet, and there I had a conversation with one of the residents there. They were from a very advanced race, many light years from Earth. Their job was they were there to monitor what's going on Earth. They've been around for a long time. They were just one of the many races that have been monitoring Earth. So when people see UFOs, it's some of their spacecraft that they're allowing humans to see. And so they've been around for a long time. They're very benevolent. There's no evil races that have been visiting our planet. They're all benevolent. And they're all part of the Galactic Council, which is the council that governs all super intelligent races in our galaxy, all the ones who can travel between the stars. And so one of their jobs is to make sure that if there are some evil and barbaric races on some planets in our galaxy, they probably consider humans to be like that. But their job is to make sure that those people do not get interstellar travel capability, because they don't want the barbaric races to travel to other planets and wage war. So they sort of monitor that. And so they are watching what's happening on planet Earth. When we split the atom in World War II, that really sent off a notice to a lot of the other races who come trotting over to planet Earth to say, what are these humans doing if they've managed to split the atom? So we better be careful that they don't find out how to travel to other star systems and wage war. And so that's one of the things they're doing is watching us. But they're also very benevolent because they want to help us in our progress, and they have been doing it in very subtle ways. But they're subject to what they call the prime directive, like the prime directive on Star Trek, which is that they cannot unduly interfere with the development of an inferior race. And we are to them an inferior race. And so they can't sort of interfere unduly, but they send us telepathic messages with clues as to how we can improve our technology, improve our way of life. But it's all sort of very subtle. It's not sort of, come down and here's the solution to all your problems on a silver platter. So they just can't do that. So anyway, those are a couple of ET encounters. I also had occasion to go to a couple of other human civilizations on different planets. Really, really quite interesting. One was a matriarchal planet. It was governed by women solely. So they're humans like us. They were quite more advanced than us, but they were governed solely by women. And they were very peaceful because the women said they resolved their differences peacefully. And the men were all very docile and amicable because they were all chemically sterilized at the age of 3. So that meant very low testosterone levels. So the men were just deferential and docile. The women ruled the planet. Men couldn't hold jobs or have any position of authority. And their planet got along fine. And I remember after I left that, and Albert took me there, and after I left that planet, I said to Albert, has this civilization ever visited planet Earth? And he said, no, they had not yet the capability to travel between the stars. And I said, thank God. I was afraid I'd have to rush back to Earth to warn the men, lest we all end up singing like the Vienna Boys Choir. Anyway, so they haven't been here. So that's one way to run a planet, I guess. I don't know. And I always thought there should be some happy medium between. Our planet is pretty patriarchal, run mostly by men, as you all know, sometimes to the detriment of women. In some of our countries, the women are subjugated and abused, which is just totally wrong. Then he took me to another planet, which sort of got it all together. It was very advanced human civilization. They had they discovered a long time ago that the defect in humans that causes them to have out of control negative emotions like fear, anger, hate, that causes all the conflicts and the genocide and the murders and whatever else. They found that was a defective gene in the humans, and they learned through genetic engineering and selective breeding, they managed to breed that out of humans so that there was no negative emotions there. They had also learned to get rid of all the diseases that we're subject to. And so the people there lived for several hundred years, and they were all very happy. And men and women were actually very equal. Everything was very equal. So that was sort of the planet that had got it all together. It wasn't a matriarchal extreme or the patriarchal extreme like ours. They had gotten it all together. And so there's hope for us. And of course, what I said, I said to one of the citizens there, I said, can you give me the secret for this, for how you got rid of this defective gene? And they said, well, we could, but we won't. I mean, because you guys have to figure that out for yourself. And so it's the old sort of prime directive. You can't just hand all the solutions to those earthlings on a silver platter. They have to figure it out for themselves. And so that was really too bad. The other interesting thing, the little side, was that this society had discovered a diet pill, and I find this quite fascinating, a diet pill so that the people there could eat whatever they wanted to, as many desserts, as many cheeseburgers, as French fries, whatever they want, never gain an ounce of weight or develop high cholesterol. And so they just loved going out to restaurants, eating and drinking, take a diet pill, didn't affect them at all. So, and that's one of the things I wanted to get. And again, they said, no, sorry, you're gonna have to figure that out for yourself. So
yeah, I want that diet pill.
Yeah,
I still want that diet pill.
There's a lot of people would like to have that. So those are some of the adventures. I mean, I've been taken to a parallel universe.
Hang on. I want to stay on this planet. I want to stay on this planet, and then we'll go back into more of what you've experienced.
Okay.
I want to stay here for a while, because I was on Kat's show yesterday morning, Catman and Linda Colterberg and Gillian. There's 3 of them that host the show, and we were talking about creating a new reality, you know, for planet Earth. So what humans do is they look out into the world and they see the problems of the world, and they worry about it, and they talk about it, and they focus on it, and then we keep recreating it and recreating it and recreating it, instead of focusing on and thinking about and putting energy into what you want to create. And so this planet, Garnet, is this example of who we can be as a human civilization. And do you remember the name of the planet or the name of the civilization? Like, did the people on the planet call themselves humans?
Didn't ask them that. They knew that they were the same race and species as we are. The planet was called Gamma. It's many light years away. I mean, I'm sure that who knows whether the astronomers on Earth can even see it or find it. But it was, and they knew that we are their cousins, basically. We're the same species. And they knew what was going on Earth. And they just sort of shook their heads and said, you know, those guys, we were there a long time ago and we've gone past that. And so hopefully these humans on Earth can get to the same position, but they weren't going to give us any magic bullet to get us there. So it was very interesting. It was a good thing to see that this is what can happen to us if we work at it.
So it's almost like it's Earth in the future on a positive timeline. You know, if we don't kill ourselves and with AI and control and drama and we don't blow ourselves up with atomic energy. It's a positive timeline of what Earth can be. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And it's definitely something that we can accomplish. We just have to work at it. You know, and the big problem with our civilization is that we have too many people letting their negative emotions get out of control. And that causes all the conflicts and strife and everything else. And so the answer for us is to discard our negative emotions and fully embrace love, compassion, and forgiveness. And if we can all do that, I mean, that's way easier said than done, but that's really the goal we have to try to achieve.
Yeah, right. And you said that even though they had evolved their society and they had taken the ritual of food with them, because as we evolve in consciousness and in form, I'm not going to say human form, but in form, we could evolve out of the necessity to eat food, but they actually loved the whole social aspect and the ritual of food. But all the food was vegan, right?
Oh yeah, no, it was all yeah, absolutely, it's all plant-based. And they said, look, we could make the nutritious food in the form of a liquid like a smoothie, and we can drink that and get all the things that we need. But they realized that humans do like to enjoy food and drink and so on. And so they said, fine, let's go ahead and eat this manufactured food from plants that we can enjoy. And we take this diet pill and nothing affects us. And so that was they do like the social aspect of getting together to dine with people.
Yeah, which I loved, because, you know, as you think about the human race evolving, you know, some have evolved into like the greys, like the body has become very simplified and uniform. Everyone's looking the same. And then they evolve out of eating. There are some rituals of being human, like the social aspect of food and the creativity of cooking. And that would be nice to take into the future, I think, as long as the practices are sustainable and not cruel, like they are on planet Earth at the moment.
Yeah, and on that planet, they clearly were, because they were just, everything was plant-based, so they did not kill their animals or eat their flesh or abuse them. They were very respectful for the other planets or the other animals in their planet, very respectful to their planet itself, didn't pollute it. So it was just sort of like an idyllic society where everyone got along fine in harmony, and they enjoyed what they liked to enjoy, which is, you know, eating and drinking. That's not all they did, but they enjoyed that as part of their nightly routine. And they also had the capability of traveling to other stars. So they had actually been, you know, had observed our planet at one point, and they'd gone to other places. And so it was a very peaceful, harmonic society, which was like, was
so
amazing.
They were a space-based race. I'll say that fast 5 times. A space-based race.
Yeah, they could travel between the stars. Yeah.
What was their transportation like? Did they have sort of car type, you know, how did they get around their planet? Were there roads or what was that like?
They had like sort of like flying cars, and they
flying
had
cars.
And, yeah, they had sort of very ultra modern transportation on their planet. I didn't get to see what their spacecraft that traveled between the stars looked like, but they said they could travel. So I didn't get to see everything. I just got a little window glimpse of what
I
this
know.
was like. But they were all the citizens were all very fit and trim. There wasn't an ounce of fat on anyone. They were all, physically fit, and they all very happy, and they had a great society. It was absolutely, and men and women were equal. There was no hierarchy among their citizens. There was nobody got special privileges. So they were ruled by sort of a council elected by the people, but nobody got a bigger house or a bigger car or a bigger anything. It was all, everyone got sort of the same thing, and they were quite happy with that. They didn't really care. They didn't have money. They didn't care about material possessions. That was
the next question. Did they have money? They didn't have money. Kristen's got a great question here. Are there varied ethnic groups like planet Earth?
You mean on this planet Gamma that I was
on the planet
about?
Gamma, yeah.
Oh, yeah, no, there's various kinds of different skin tones and hair color and everything. It was sort of like not much different than planet Earth. They had all kinds of variations, brown, black, yellow, whatever, and white. And so, but there was no discrimination. There was no, the color of your skin didn't make any difference to anyone there.
Yeah.
And so I think that they sort of, I'm not sure what their history was, but obviously they had different ethnic groups within their society, and that was just fine.
Yeah. Yeah. And Vladdy, do you want to ask your question, honey one?
Yeah. Did you spoke with some races which already use teleportation?
Teleportation, Garnet.
Oh, yeah, I don't know if they had it, but just a little teaser there. I did go to a parallel universe that I describe in my 5th book, where the Earth in a parallel universe had in fact developed teleportation, and you can read about all the details in my 5th book.
Oh, so that's in the 5th book. You talk about teleportation.
Yes.
Beam me up, Scotty. And that was on a. Scotty.
In fact, that's the chapter title for that chapter is "Beam Me Up, Scotty."
I can't remember when it was, ages ago, in a meditation or a reading, I can't remember. I was privy to me in another life being somebody that was involved in teleporting people. And I thought to myself, ooh, now I understand my frustration when I travel anywhere, how slow it is. You've got to get in a car or you've got to get in a plane. And I thought, okay, somewhere in the cosmos, I'm involved in, or maybe I live in a place where, I'm privy to that. I don't know. It's this veil of forgetfulness. What do you say here, Lisha? When the shift occurs here on Earth, New Earth, things will certainly be propelled forward in a positive way. But you've been on so many podcast shows now, Garnet, and people are talking about the shift, and some people are saying it's going to be some cataclysmic event or some high energy event. Did he speak about that?
Yeah, there is going to be a high energy, a wave of high energy that's going to be hitting Earth. That's going to cause or result in a lot of people raising their vibrations up. And then what's happened then is, of course, they'll rise up to 5D Earth or New Earth. And so that's coming. And of course, he won't give me a set date. He never does. It's sort of like, he just sort of says, yeah, it's coming. And when it comes, you'll know it. So a lot of people will, in that shift, will rise up to New Earth, but there'll be a lot of people who aren't spiritually aware and have no desire to raise their vibrations, or don't even know that that's a problem. They'll be left behind. Mm-hmm. So it's not everyone's going, and which is unfortunate. But then those people left behind, they're going to have to deal with what's left behind, and when eventually their bodies perish and their souls go back to the spirit side. So even though they may be left behind in the old Earth, when they die, they still go back to the spirit side. And then they'll have to decide, should we reincarnate into the new Earth, or should we go back to the old Earth? What do we want to do? But there's going to be lots of people left behind. It was in one of my astral travels, I met with a lady who had made the ascension to the new Earth. Mm. And it was a tragic story. She had been happily married, and and one day a drunk driver killed her husband and her 2 children, T-boned them in an intersection. So she spiraled down into the depths of despair, contemplated suicide. Finally, somebody told her, well, why don't you just go to an ashram in India and see if they can help you? So she did, nothing to lose. And there she learned how to meditate, and she got really deep into it. And eventually she learned to forgive the driver who killed her family. And then she forgave God for letting it happen. And then one day she was in deep meditation. She came out of the meditation and she had popped up to the new earth, and she was in a totally different place. And so she had then, when she had left, her soul had left the new earth, she came back to spirit side, and I had a conversation with her. And I said to her, so if you choose to reincarnate, are you going to reincarnate back on the new earth because it's such a better place? She says, well, it's a wonderful place. She said, but I'm going to incarnate back on the old earth so I can help people there make the shift and raise their vibration. So there was somebody who wanted to come back to our old earth just to help the people there. So it's hard to say what will happen to the souls who leave, but there will be a whole bunch of people who will be left behind. And unfortunately, because those people are the ones who are most likely to let their negative emotions get out of control, then it's not going to be a lot of fun on this planet. When the spiritually enlightened people raise their vibrations and leave, what's left behind is not going to be a pretty sight. But anyway, let's just hope that we can all get on the shift to the new earth.
Well, that's really interesting, because there's been a couple of narratives that the old earth will be destroyed and then everyone will die, and then people that don't ascend will come back onto another planet that will be dense, still in 3D, and the people that have done the consciousness work will, ascend with planet Earth. There's been a few stories going on. So you're saying that Albert says the new Earth exists in time and space now, and there's a population of people living there in 5D. And some people, I don't even know what the percentage is, but some people, humans that are experiencing life on 3D Earth at the moment, will shift when this energy wave hits, will shift and find themselves in a new Earth, like the lady did that was meditating in the ashram. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, exactly. This wave of energy will mainly affect the people who are spiritually and enlightened right now. I mean, the people who understand the problem with humanity, who understand that negative emotions are the problem on Earth, and who really want to try to change things. So those people are going to be the ones who are going to make the shift. The other people will be left behind. If it gets really bad, it's possible that the Gaia can just decide to, heck with you guys, I'm going to wipe you out, start over. She's capable of doing that. I don't know. He didn't say whether that would happen or not, but so, if it gets really bad after the good guys go back to 5D Earth, she may do that. So he wouldn't disclose whether that would happen or not, but that is possible. Gaia can really wipe off all humans on this planet if she chooses to do so. And she's very frustrated right now with what humans are doing in terms of abusing Mother Earth with our pollution, abusing the other animals on the planet, abusing one another. Mm-hmm. And she doesn't understand that, and she really wants us to change our ways. But she has the ultimate weapon, which she doesn't want to use, which is to just get rid of us. And so let's hope she doesn't have to do that. Or let's hope that we're all in 5D Earth before that happens.
Well, that's that's another probable timeline, isn't it? So there are a variety of timelines out there, future probable timelines where planet Earth will descend into more darkness, and maybe there's, robots controlling us, and, like Hollywood has depicted so many times, or the Mad Max sort of scenario where the Earth has been destroyed and there's a handful of people left on the population that are all, struggling to survive, and they're sort of killing each other over, meager, whatever, food and stuff like that. And then there is another scenario where Mother Gaia says, I've got to shake these fleas off. They're just destroying my body. And she wipes off everybody. And then her body rejuvenates back into a paradise, an Eden paradise, where there's no humans or maybe even animal life for a time, and starts again. So there's a few probable futures out there, isn't there?
Exactly. And as Gaia has said, before humans, way back when, humans didn't really cause any problem. I mean, when in the Stone Age, we had a campfire here and there. We didn't really pollute anything. After the Industrial Revolution, we really had the capability to really pollute our planet, and we've been doing so. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of movements now to sort of curtail that, but Gaia says we have to get better at that, because, if we go on the current path that we're on, it's going to end badly for us, and that's sort of a veiled threat. But anyway, hopefully that doesn't happen. If I manage to be on the shift to go to the new Earth, I'm not going to, I wish the people left behind, I wish them well, and I wish that they could eventually get there themselves, but I understand that a lot of them just aren't going to make it.
Yeah, which is a choice point too. I mean, we're given, so with people like you, Garnet, and many of the people I speak to on the shows and the people that I don't speak to on the shows, it's like millions, hundreds of thousands, there's millions of people out there, you know, here to spread knowledge, to teach us about what's possible as a human, like what's possible, human potential. And so there's knowledge there that we can take it if we want to. And then there are people that are not taking it and not listening and continuing to hate each other and fight each other and be violent and all that sort of stuff. But that's a choice, isn't it? And yes, their soul is making as well, because everyone has a higher self and a team of spirit guides that are helping them while they live out their human lives. And they have the ability to tap in and tune in and listen to that guidance, which is always available and always being given to every single person on the planet. It's not like we're special. It's like everyone's receiving guidance from higher dimensions. And so there's a choice to evolve or not. And it's not right or wrong or good or bad. It's just a choice that you can make. And like you say so many times, once we're finished and we extract our consciousness from this world and we return to the spirit side, you know, we're better for the experience, whether it's been a horrific experience or a fun experience. We've evolved because of the experience, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Every life on Earth, whether it's what we call a good life or a really evil life, we learn something from every one. We get back to the spirit side, then we have our life review and we go over our past life, the most recent life in detail. And then we can realize, okay, well, this is where I went off course and this is what I shouldn't have done. And here's where I did some good things. So then you try to remember that for the next one. So it's really you know, you get back to the spirit side and you have a choice. You can say, do I want to incarnate back on planet Earth? And then of course the choice would be old Earth or new Earth, or do I want to go to a different planet in a different life form, or do I just want to hang around in the spirit side and listen to harp music? I mean, it's just our choice.
I know there's infinite choices available to us. I mean, yeah, we're just infinite choices. Okay, what's the difference between the coming 5D new Earth and the new Earth you have visited? I
mean, the new Earth that I visited, I describe in my books, it's the same as where the 5D Earth that people here are going to go to. So there's just it's the same thing, and it's just a matter of it's the same time frame. It's not a future event. It exists right now simultaneously, but at a much higher vibration dimension. And so how we get there basically is that we have to increase our vibrations to match those of the new Earth. And when you
so interesting
vibrations to match that level of the new Earth, you just pop up. It's just like Albert said, it's like if you hold a cork underwater, let it go, it just pops up to the surface. Well, that's what we will do when we get our vibrations up there high enough. And so that's really the goal that we have to try to achieve.
Wow. It's so interesting because we discuss, you know, that we're creating a new Earth, that the light weavers, the light workers here are creating a new Earth as if it doesn't already exist and we're creating it, right? But what you're saying is, well, everything exists in time and space because there's no linear time and space. But what you're saying is, well, we're not creating it, we're aligning to it. We're resonating to. So once we reach a resonance, a vibrational resonance that matches that frequency of 5D, then we're there. So
that's exactly how it works. And it sounds very simple, not so easy to achieve because we all have different vibrational rates and it's not easy to get the vibration rate up there. We have to get rid of our negative emotions, discard them, stifle them entirely. And that's not easy. We're human beings. You know, if somebody cuts you off in traffic, the reaction is one of anger and, you know, flipping the bird or whatever, you know, and we have to catch ourselves from doing this. I mean, but that's a simple example. I mean, we have to stop, treating other people with distrust or hate. People with a different skin color, speak a different language, have a different religion, whatever, dress differently. We have to sort of stop judging them and stop feeling mistrust because they're not like us. And so all those things keep our vibrations down. And once we sort of get rid of all that and fully embrace love and compassion, then our vibrations just rise up.
Right. So here's a question you may or may not be able to answer. There are people that are living in this 3D world that have already resonated to the frequency of 5D, that live like that are love light, and yet they're not popping up to 5D Earth. How does that work?
I don't know. I have not heard of that. So I don't know. It may be possible for people on the new Earth to actually come down and manifest themselves on the old Earth. I never got into that at all, but I do know that once your vibration rate matches that of new Earth, up you go. And so I haven't talked to Albert about that. If you're living on the new Earth, you really wouldn't want to come back to our Earth. I mean,
well, you would, just like your character in the book. What was her name? Because you come back as a teacher. You come back as a helper. Yeah.
You're right.
Right.
That's not something I got into with Albert, but I think it's entirely possible. Yeah.
Ooh, so good. That's fascinating. Thank you for asking those questions, Kristen, because that was a question I wanted to pose. And I said on one of the shows that I wanted to ask you if you had the ability to astral travel at will, like because so many people do, they can sit on the couch and meditate and just pop out of their body. And I remember speaking to Kevin Briggs. He used to do it as a kid on the bus. He used to just pop out of his body when he's on the bus to school and fly behind the bus and look, like he could just do it at will. So you can't do that.
No, I know lots of people can do that. They can pop out and do an out-of-body experience. I haven't really tried, because when Albert comes, he just does it for me.
Right.
And so I haven't been able to do it on my own. I know lots of people can. I wished I could. On the other hand, I'm not sure, the way it works with Albert, it's nice to have a tour guide when you're out of body, somebody you trust, that you don't have to worry about. I heard some people say, you're out of body and they're kind of concerned, like, will I ever get back into my body? Am I going to be lost out here? Well, when I'm with Albert, there's no question about it. I know he takes me out, he brings me back, puts me back in my physical body, and I'm safe.
Yeah. He's your little guardian angel, even though he won't tell you if he's an angel or not. There's some good questions here. We'll go to Sarah's question, because she asked it ages ago, about what Albert has said about what's happening now on planet Earth. Has he made any comments about it?
Yeah, he's made a few comments. First of all, in terms of the ETs and UFOs, he's saying that I think I said before in your shows, is that these ETs have decided way back when to not make full and open disclosure to humans, because they didn't think that we were ready to accept it. And what they didn't want to do is cause riots and chaos and disruptions in our lives by suddenly showing up and having a UFO drop down on the lawn of the White House. So they've been doing this very carefully. And you may have noticed, everyone, in the last while, there's been more and more disclosure about UFOs. People are seeing more of them. But you're getting some of the US Navy tapes that are being released. Before, governments, when people would raise these things, they'd say, "Oh, that's a weather balloon, or it's a natural phenomenon." Now they stopped the sort of the vehement denials. They're slowly bringing us into awareness that there are UFOs, there are ET vehicles. They won't sort of admit what they are yet, but they're they're priming us. They're getting us ready for the full disclosure. That will come. It'll be unraveled slowly, and at some point, we'll have a full and open disclosure with the ETs, or with some of them anyway. And so that's what's happening. And so he said that's why you're seeing so many more stories about people seeing UFOs and government, and people, the Israeli scientist who spoke out recently about UFOs, and there's other people, and former President Obama has hinted at UFOs, and so it's all slowly coming out. And of course, these ET races have had contact with governments on our planet. U.S. government for sure. I don't know how many others, but so the very top people in the U.S. government, like the president and I don't know who else, they all know about the ETs, and they're aware of them, and they're aware of the plan to slowly roll this out. And so that's just part of the plan. The other thing he's told us about what's happening on planet Earth, of course, as you're all aware, is the pandemic. Well, he said that the pandemic was deliberately released by Gaia, and what she wanted to do was to have a circuit breaker for humanity, because we were just going off on a tangent, and we're dealing with the frenzy of our lives, with trying to earn money and acquire material goods and acquire property, and for countries to try to acquire other countries, and the whole thing that we're into. She wanted us to have a circuit breaker where we go on pause, we'd be locked down for a while, and we could spend some time doing some navel gazing about who we are and what we're doing. And one of the things was that during the last spring, during the first lockdown, a lot of people noticed that there was a whole lot less pollution in our planet. Like the sky over Los Angeles was not as smoggy. Somebody said in Cairo, for the first time in years, from Cairo, you could see the pyramids. Before that, it was always too smoggy. Somebody mentioned that the canals in Venice were so clear that people could see dolphins swimming in it. So she wanted us to see, look, humans, this is what can happen if you stop polluting so much. So she wanted us to have a pause, and she wanted us to have a reset. And hopefully the pandemic will cause the reset. And I think it's working already. I think more and more people are working from home, so those people don't have to commute. They're not burning fossil fuel getting to work. People are traveling less, and people are starting to realize, hey, this is maybe not a bad thing, and that we need to sort of set off on a new course. So pandemic was delivered by Gaia. She wasn't trying to kill everyone. She knew that the number of people would die, but she really wanted to wake us up. Hopefully that has worked. And okay. Of course, she has developed, and she's also allowed the vaccine to develop. Albert says for those people, including you, Karen, the vaccine is the way for humanity to get out of the pandemic.
Wow. Yeah, I know people are shaking their head. This is not a narrative that I'm buying into. I've been looking into vaccines for over 30 years, and I've never seen that as a way forward in our health ever. And I think that we have a perfectly good immune system that if we allow it, it will do its job really, really well. And
careful, Karen, because Albert is listening, and he might send a bolt of lightning to you.
Thanks, Albert.
Yeah.
Well, now that's really interesting because so many people in the conscious community have my point of view, and it's so interesting to hear your point of view, the different point of view. So when you say Gaia released the virus, what I'm seeing is that Gaia allowed the virus to be released because Gaia in herself doesn't necessarily make viruses that is going to wipe off her children. I don't think that would be something that would be an intentional thing that Mother Gaia would do. Like, let's just kill a whole lot of humans. Well, I suppose she could do it if we're polluting the place, but humans can do that. Like, humans have that sort of more nefarious mindset where they tinker with chemicals, and they're sort of trying, in their science, they're trying to sort of create weapons of destruction and, warfare. They're always looking at ways to kill, humans are always developing weapons to kill each other, whether they're machine guns or virus weapons. So maybe she just allowed that weaponry to be released, knowing it would have beneficial effects.
Well, as far as what Albert has told me was that it wasn't developed by men, wasn't developed by humans. It was a natural thing, and she did allow it to be released. She could have just killed it in its tracks, but for the reasons I stated, she allowed it to get out among humans. But it was not developed in a human lab anywhere. As far as I know, a lot of people think it was. Albert says no, it wasn't.
Okay, so
leave Albert or whatever, it doesn't matter. It's up to you.
So the narrative that the vaccine's being developed to control the human race, and that it's an experimental drug that is making people really sick, and it has nanobots in it. Has Albert sort of said anything about that?
Yeah, he says that's nonsense. There's no nanobots. Bill Gates is not behind this, and there's no microchips in the vaccine.
Okay, interesting. And how does he explain people that are actually dying from the vaccines? Because there's a lot of evidence of that coming out.
Well, people are going to die naturally anyway. So, I mean, somebody has, the media will say, so many people who have vaccinated have died. Well, those people would have died anyway. I mean, people are dying all the time around the world. And to sort of say it was caused by the vaccine is not really truthful. I mean, it makes sort of a nice news story, but it's not, the vaccines aren't killing people. Those people are going to die anyway. So it's not a...
There was an Indian actor that was very pro-vaccine, and he was very outspoken. He had millions of followers in India, and he went on television and had his vaccine publicly. It was broadcast all over India, and he was telling people, get your vaccine, get your vaccine. I'm getting my vaccine. And he was inoculated live on television, and 2 weeks later he was dead.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean the vaccine caused his death, though, Karen. That's the thing. It doesn't mean that there's it seems like because it's 2 weeks later that the vaccine caused it. He could have been dying. If he hadn't taken the vaccine, he could have died in 2 weeks anyway. I mean,
Well, this is true because I remember you said, and it's the same with the coronavirus too. So are people dying from the coronavirus, or are they dying because it's their time to die? Because I remember the very first show that we had, and I asked you this question: with all the amazing things that you've experienced with Albert, what's the thing that has been the most outstanding, that's really blown your mind? And you said to me back then that we all die, when we choose to die. You said, did you want to talk about that?
Yeah, I mean, that was really astounding to me, is that Albert said that humans die when their souls are ready to leave the incarnation.
Right.
And souls, before we incarnate, we prepare this life plan, and we usually include, a number of exit points.
Right.
And before you incarnate, you're not sure which one you're going to use. Is it going to be the first one or the fifth one or whatever? And you can change these as you go along. But so our souls decide when to leave. And we could leave by getting a terminal disease, catching the coronavirus, dying in a car accident, or whatever. But we all, our souls choose when we're going to leave. And our human minds aren't aware of that. Of course, obviously, for obvious reasons, it would be too distressful. So no one dies by accident. So even if a plane with 300 people on board crashes and everyone's killed, that wasn't an accident. All of the souls from every one of those people decided that was the way they were going to exit this life.
Right.
So that's comforting, except it's not really, because I have no idea what my soul has planned for me. And so I don't know when I'm going to die. And actually, it's a good thing, because I really wouldn't want to know that. But it's comforting to know that we exit, our souls exit when they're ready to go.
Yeah.
And then once they decide it's time to go, they'll say, okay, I'm going to take this exit point. If they're not ready to go and they want to learn some more, they'll say, okay, I'm going to pass on that exit point, and I'll move on to the next one. So yeah, our souls decide when they want to leave.
Right.
That's what she was planning to do. Yeah. And she's not only, she does a number of things. It's not just the virus. She can control, to a large degree, the natural disasters that happen on our planet, like earthquakes and tornadoes and hurricanes and wildfires and that sort of thing. And she's been increasing the number and intensity of those over the last while, as you probably know. There's wildfires in Australia, California, earthquakes, floods, whatever. And so that's the other way she's trying to wake us up, is by increasing these natural disasters, so that we say, oh, we're in the middle of climate change. We better do something about it. And the big thing, of course, we have to do about it is to stop polluting the environment, cut back on our CO2 emissions. And that's what she's trying to send the message to us. And so she could make the natural disasters even worse. But she's working on two fronts: natural disasters and the virus. God knows what she's going to do next if we don't wake up. But hopefully we'll all be in 5D Earth before that happens.
Yeah. Okay. So I here we go. I've got some questions around this. So if she released the virus, because interestingly enough, I understand that everything that has been happening that's been traumatic on planet Earth over the last year or so has been for the benefit of the evolution of human consciousness and for the ascension process, because as many people who know that watch my shows, so many people and read the books that I put out have awakened through trauma in their lives, whether it's been the death of a loved one or their own death, a near-death experience or a sickness or a divorce. So as they experience trauma, they start asking different questions and they start cleaning up their own. They start looking at themselves. How am I responsible for this? How can I feel better? And there is this mass awakening, and it usually is through trauma. And so as trauma has been increased on the planet, there are many more people awakening. If they're not dying, they're awakening. But at the same time, we have to take responsibility for our own health, which a lot of humans don't do. With our diets, with the pollution that we have, there's not only there's pollution from our cars and factories, and there's pollution from radiation. And so it is a wake-up call. We need to take responsibility, and we can't have a magic jab that's going to make it all go away. So the jab doesn't fit with this whole story. Like if we just take a vaccine and then we go back to life as normal, we haven't really woken up to living differently on planet Earth, right?
Well, to a large degree, you're right. But there's a hope that enough people during the pandemic will realize that we have to do a reset, and that we'll try to work towards that. You're not going to get everyone. The people, like you say, the vaccine will take care of the virus, and a lot of people will go back to doing what they did before. and you just can't help that. But the goal is to try to get a few more people, spiritually enlightened, understand what's going on, and try to change things. And so that's so it's not a magic bullet. It's not going to happen overnight, but it's a step towards maintaining that goal or getting that goal.
So interesting. So interesting. Yeah, Karen.
Yeah, you have to be a very brave soul to take on that kind of a life. And there are people. I remember when Albert first told me that we choose our lives, and I'm thinking, why would somebody choose to be a blind beggar in Calcutta or somebody who's a paraplegic or whatever? He said, well, they have good reasons for it. You won't understand that, but they have good reasons for doing that. They're to learn some lessons themselves, help other people around them. And not just, they're very brave souls. In fact, he said, all humans should pat themselves on the back for being so courageous as to come to the Earth School, which is really a tough school. It's really he said, one of the most difficult ones in the universe. So we're here. We're very courageous. We don't understand why we came here. I'm sure a lot of people are saying, why did I come here? And I'm not ever coming back to this hellhole. But he says, when you're on the spirit side, much different perspective. So that the people saying there's no way I'm coming back, when you get back to the spirit side, you'll have a very different point of view. And that, in fact, you'll probably say, oh, yeah, well, I'll come back. You see, a lifetime on Earth, say of 80 years, seems like a long time for us because there's no linear time. It's an illusion here. On the spirit side, 80 years of human life is like a blink of an eye. So it's sort of like, here I am. I'm going to take a very short adventure to learn some things on planet Earth. I'll be back here before you can, turn around. And so very different perspective. And one of the funny things that happened to me was when I was speaking at one conference, and I was telling them how Albert told me that I could choose my own life. And I said, well, Albert, if I could choose my own life, why didn't I choose to be Prince Charles? And a lady in the audience stood up and she said, you wouldn't want to be Prince Charles because then you'd have to put up with Camilla. Sorry, I have nothing against Camilla, but that's just what this lady said. In any event, we do choose our lives, and we choose the lessons and the hardships we want to go through, and it's not etched in stone. Like, as you know, once you do a life plan, once you get here, you don't remember what's in your life plan. You have free will to act, and so things just change. You don't follow it precisely, and that's just one of the challenges from being here. So, in any event, are you okay, Karen?
Your sense of humor has increased. The first time I spoke with you, you were so serious. And each time I speak with you, your sense of humor gets more and more. Oh, God, you crack me up.
Worse as I go. That's worse, yeah.
Oh, gosh, yeah. Okay, so I wanted to get into the next book and what you're covering. Do you want to give us an overview of the topics that you're covering in book number 5?
Sure. Well, one of the first things in the book is that I, on one of my trips to Albert takes me to the spirit side, is that I got to sit in on a orientation class for souls who were contemplating incarnating on Earth but had not yet done so. So this was like it's in the amphitheater in the Gaia, and so all these souls they're getting basically lectures from Albert and Sophia, who's the chair of the Council of Wise Ones. I got to sit on this. It was very interesting, and it kind of goes over the whole thing, like, where did this all start? Where did the source come from? Who created the universe? And we go all through all the things, about souls are individual aspects of the source, and that, why do we incarnate? How do we incarnate? What do we do before that? What happens with life on Earth? Does the source govern things? Does the source make rules? No. Are we judged after we die? Where do we go after we die? Sort of the whole details of the cycle of reincarnation. A lot of this has been in bits and pieces in my other books, but this is sort of like bringing it all together. So that was a very interesting part of it. And then I got to see talk to some interesting people. Like you mentioned, Albert Einstein, got to have a conversation with him. Very interesting. I'm not going to tell you what he said, but it's in the book. But he's a very interesting guy, and Albert Einstein was one of the quotes my favorite quotes from him was that he said, and you mentioned this before, Karen, he said that life on Earth is an illusion, but it's a very persistent illusion. So for us, it's that's all there is this planet Earth. It doesn't seem like an illusion. Anyway, so Albert Einstein was an interesting guy. I got to have a conversation. This may seem goofy to you, but with Marie Antoinette. The other interesting person I met was Mother Teresa,
Mm-hmm.
also known as Saint Teresa by the Catholic, canonized by the Catholic Church. So she had some interesting perspectives on it. And one of the things she said was, this saint business is a bunch of nonsense. She said, that's just an ancient relic of the Catholic religion. And she says, I'm not a saint, but if I am a saint, and so is everyone else, and anyway, so very interesting conversation. I met an alien on another planet who was in the form of a reptile, sort of looked like an alligator. Interesting, on this planet, they didn't abuse their planet, didn't abuse other animals, and they got all of their sustenance from their star. So they had to develop a system where the starlight, basically, they converted that into energy that they could use in their bodies, and so they didn't need to eat or drink. They just got all their energy from the sun. So it was very, very interesting. Very benevolent. Yeah, they had a very nice society, but they were reptiles. I mean, it looked like an alligator. And then one of the most interesting things was, second most interesting was that he took me to Earth in a parallel universe. And there they had the virus, coronavirus pandemic like we did, but just a few years earlier, and they managed to conquer it. And then as a result of that, they learned how to teleport things, teleport people. Oh, wow. Very interesting. And so there, they didn't have cars running all over the place. People didn't fly. If you wanted to go from city A to city B, you went into a little teleportation booth, pressed in your destination, pressed go, and you ended up at the other place. And so because of that, there was really not much pollution at all. So it was really a fascinating sort of Earth in a parallel universe. And so maybe one day we can get there as well. And then the final sort of chapter is, I had a conversation, I got to sit in a conversation that Jesus, Moses, and Muhammad had with Sophia. And the topic was, humans on Earth need another, a new enlightenment. They need another Messiah to go back to Earth to kick them up the spiritual plane. And so these guys are having a conversation. I won't go into the details, but the end result was they agreed that one of them, and they all volunteered to do this, but they agreed that one of them would come back to Earth as a new Messiah. But Albert said he wouldn't tell me when that was going to happen or who it would be. He said that's just a mystery. But anyway, maybe there's help on the way, Karen, because one of these guys is going to come back and try to change things for us on Earth.
Well, when I spoke to Belinda Womack on the show, who speaks to the archangels, she said that at this time during this great transition, that all the masters are back. They're all back incarnated. They've sent a section of their consciousness into human form to be teachers, and that all the archangels have incarnated into human form too, so that there is mass help on this planet of people and consciousness, streams of consciousness incarnating into human form to be teachers, to be human, so that they're relatable and they're living their human lives and they're having their human problems, but they know how to overcome them, and then they teach people how to overcome their negative emotions, and that all the masters are here. This is what the archangel said to Belinda. So it's not like we're without messiahs or help. So I don't know.
And I hadn't heard that, but I think that's certainly possible that is happening. But I think with these three guys, sort of these are very famous masters. I think what they were saying is that despite the fact that there are other masters maybe on Earth, that they were going to be sort of the real change, that really helped to galvanize the change in humans. And so that was, and not to say like one master isn't better than another, but these three, I think, were very famous in engendering their religions or moving them along. Yeah.
Inspired religion. And so it was, who was it? Buddha, Jesus, Muhammad, right?
Jesus, Muhammad, and Moses.
Oh, Moses, not Buddha. So you've spoken to all of them in various books, but the only other master that ignited a religion is Krishna. You haven't spoken to the Krishna, have you? Yet?
No, I have not.
Yet. Book 6.
Yet. Yeah, and maybe I will. Yeah. Albert has his own agenda, and so I don't really question who he introduces me to. I mean, there's lots of people that I'd like to talk to, but I sort of follow along with Albert, and so he may have his own reasons. I don't know, but eventually, maybe someday I will. And if I don't during this lifetime, I'll be able to talk to them when I get back to the spirit side.
Yeah, well, will you write that in books through somebody else? You'll be right.
I don't know, but I'd like to. Yeah,
you'll be inspiring another little, flesh suit, a consciousness in a flesh suit and a human body, to keep writing some books. So from the sounds of things, I know that Albert hasn't given you a time frame, but from the sounds of things, there's a lot more life to unfold if masters are going to reincarnate back on planet Earth before there is this massive shift from, the energy wave that's going to shift to the 5D. So I'm feeling like this is not going to happen in my lifetime or your lifetime, Garnet.
Yeah, I can't answer that because I don't know. Maybe it happens in 3 years from now. Maybe it doesn't happen until we're gone. Don't know. I pressed him and he just said, I'm not going to tell you that.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for being on with us in the Inner Sanctum. It's been just incredibly fantastic and magnificent. Thank you.
Well, thank you for inviting me. It's always a delight. And thanks to everyone who's tuned in today. And hopefully we can all work together to make our world a better place to live.
Well, I'll have you back. I'll probably have you back again next year.
Okay.
Once the book comes out and we read it all.
Yeah, I look forward to it.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. That's awesome.
Garnet.
Nice to meet you.
Thank you for your time.
Take care.
Thank you.
Big love, Garnet. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Have a great night, evening, afternoon, whatever it is for you.
Thanks for joining.
Bye.
Thank you. Thanks, Karen, also.
Thanks, darling.